You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations.
Hello and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, and I'm here with a special guest today. We've got Andy from Plantally behind the scenes here, and he's been facilitating spiritual healing through interconnected realms of psychedelic integration. He's working with many different kinds of medicines. Some you may have heard of before, some may be new to you. So you're going to definitely want to stay tuned and really soak this up. Get a notepad out, get some paper, whatever you need, because we're going to be talking about the medicine and integration. Some of the medicines or spiritual substances that he's been working with is ayahuasca, kambo, cannabis, tobacco. And, the real goal here is really to help people restore balance in their relationships, to ease physical traumas and just trauma in general. So there's a lot here, a lot more that he's doing. But without further ado, I'm just going to bring him on so that he himself can introduce himself to you and share some of the important work that he's been doing in this space. I'm really excited to learn more myself. So here we go. Let's bring Andy on. Hi, Andy.
Hey,
how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm really grateful to have you here. I'm going to share your banner here, and you can feel welcome to just share a little intro and let people know, what brought you here, what sparked this journey.
Well, okay. Well, I guess first thing is the kind of meeting of worlds a little bit. So I worked in conservation for 20 years, and most of that's been trying to kind of align, human with nature, I guess, and to protect biodiverse pockets of land around the world. And I guess since a young child, there was a sort of natural calling, and I felt most centered, balanced, and alive in nature. So it was only a matter of time, I guess, before I found my way to working with psychedelics, which started with working with psilocybin and taking it by myself in nature and during the day, and moving through place of distraction into place of spiritual learning, I'd say. And then I was doing some documentary films in the rainforest, and after finishing that, I found my way into the depths of Peru, where I worked with ayahuasca, but specifically I worked with plant spirits, where I'd be doing dietas, where I'd be drinking the plants, and then every 3 days there would be an ayahuasca ceremony, and the plant I was working with would be more deeply integrated, let's say, within being, and a lot of that was being taught in dream state, and incredible healing going on. But I observed how different ayahuasca was when she was paired with other plant spirits, and that's where the magic kind of really began for me. And whilst I was in the Amazon, something quite special took place, and I kind of returned home with a gift, which took a while to understand what it was and how it worked and what the calling was that's surrounding it. And then kind of fast forward, 8 years. That's what I've been doing on the Plantally website, to talk about sort of gently feeling for the edges to work out the sort of shape of this present, and unwrapping all these delicate layers. So that's that's kind of a little bit of an insight into it, the beginning stage. But kind of spoiler alert, I work with all of these incredible medicines, not in physical form. So I work with the spirit of all of these things. And I found that medicine can be delivered in that way, in kind of more or less equal proportion to when one physically ingests it as well.
Yeah, this is so interesting because we've actually had on Trinity somebody who I've actually worked with kambo with in person. You know, she physically put the medicine on me, and it was a journey and a half. What a lot of what the work is she's doing now is just what you're expressing, is through distance. She's bringing people through these connections with the kambo frog. They're experiencing, you know, the same kind of medicine transfer through purging and all of that, just ridding their body of what's unneeded, tapping into the whole spirit. And I really, you know, admire the power of that, because energy, everything is energy. And if having faith in the fact that you can tap into these energies through a form of dieta opens up the realm of spirituality, that we can connect with those who have passed before us, any kind of energy that's ever existed, any kind of energy that is in existence right now. It just it opens up to a lot of other practices and even rabbit holes for anybody there interested in these kind of realms too. I'm curious, you know, what are some of the healing potential of working in these ways?
Well, I kind of a little bit infiltrated segments of the psychedelic industry that links in with science to just overlook what's going on there. And I see some positive things, and I see some deeply concerning things, let's say. And one of those deeply concerning things is the monetarization of things, and the motivation that sits there. And I saw something really recently where a large number of millions had been raised to try and address the opioid crisis. And they were looking to address the opioid crisis through iboga. And my perspective would be, you address the opioid crisis through poppy, because it's the wrong side of relationship that's been created there. And she can, let's say, right that relationship. But our industries don't tend to look there. They run to the next continent, to the next power plant, to the next thing, which is going to create potentially the next problem. So that's one example where a relationship has been, let's say, fallen out of balance, where you can put that relationship back into balance, and all those symptomatic things that have been kind of crafted around it also just fall away. And I've witnessed that with cannabis more recently, working with it, which I think how you found your way to me through the person that spoke on that. She herself spoke about it, healing her own relationship with cannabis, where she had, I don't say abused it, but taken it for granted and switched this sort of ritual to habitual in the evening. And we see the same go on with tobacco, an incredible medicinal plant, huh? Like sort of sacred in the Amazon, the gift to when you're felling a tree, the gift to the spirits, and how, you know, more or less how the Western world has just destroyed that relationship by stripping out, spraying on, and all the stuff to it. So I might say, and I have not explored that myself, but I might say you might be able to look at addiction with tobacco, but not just addiction with tobacco, addiction in general, through tobacco itself. And so it's coming back to the root of what created that problem. And within that, there's not just the spirit of that item, that physical thing itself. There's a whole energetic behind it, a whole elemental sequence that shows why that thing has then manifested in the person through that wrong relationship. And by working in with that, you heal it.
Yeah, I really admire this way of thinking. And I gotta say, you know, in a few ways, you know, our paths have definitely been parallel, and I can see it with this too. My grandfather, like, he's an older man, kind of veteran biker, we'll say. And so his body, like, from the way that he, you know, used it and abused it in his life, is not very well. And my family in general has a history with addictions, and so opiates have not been used the best, like, across the board for many people in my family. And right now, that's been his crutch. So when I saw him recently, that's what our discussion really was on the poppy. I'm like, it's not about, you know, a lot of, at that point in time, he had to get off of everything to stay where he was staying with that specific family member, which meant withdrawal and all this other stuff. So our conversation was around, okay, we'll tap into the poppy spirit, spend time with the poppy flower, maybe work with the seeds, incorporate it in to your diet somehow to help, you know, to create more of a balance and that connection, that renewal of connection, because it's been severed and lost because of the plant itself isn't in its whole form. It's now missing parts of it, you know, which means that we're missing part of the message, part of the connection, part of what gives it its balance for us, which would have been its natural healing form. And yeah, it didn't resonate with him as well as, like, you know, of course I wanted it to, because that's what happens with family sometimes. But I know that parts of it stuck, and it opened up other people's eyes too to this potential that, you know, opiate itself isn't bad. It's like the poppy flower is good. It's that things have been changed and altered, much like our food. Our food isn't the same food it was back in the day. It's now, for the most part, this kind of Franken food, and we have to get that relationship back by going back to ferments and organic farming and feeling the soil and these kinds of things. And you're really presenting this in a way of, you know, no matter where your crutch is, go to the source. It's not about denying yourself that which you desire. It's about finding out where that disconnection happened and exploring how to bring it into full balance and have gratitude again and see the blessings in it and figure out where the wholeness is in general with yourself and with your plant ally.
Yeah, for sure. But and if we go in, I mean, for me, there's a line that runs through addiction as well, and Poppy herself will tell this story, and probably, you know, before, I don't know if I go into it, but how it works for me is, you know, the human mind might kind of delve its way through stuff and grab at things, and that's not how this world works. For me, at least for me, my world works that the thing makes itself very clear to me that I am to work with it, and tends to work in numerous ways. Often works with animals this way, that they come to me, and they come to me in multiple different ways and environments and make themselves pretty clear. And if they're not recognized, they make it more clear. But with plants, there'll be a calling. So for an example, I created a vegetable patch outside my house here, and I had to bring in some good soil in, and opium poppy just started growing everywhere. And, you know, the mind could look at that and it could be like, oh, of course there were poppy seeds in there, of course it's going to grow. Mine was like, well, there it is growing, so let's go and work with it. And I already had a relationship with poppy, a very strong relationship built many years ago. But she taught me about the world wars. It's really interesting. And she taught me about grief, and she taught me about when people are stuck in grief. And she showed me a story, and it was a lady whose husband had died at war, and she got the letter, and she closed her curtain, and she sat in the living room in the dark crying. And then at a certain point, and this was the medicine of poppy for me, the curtains opened and the sunlight came through, and she left the house and she fell in love with someone new, and she was running through the meadow fields. And so within part of this level of addiction, as I see it, at least as it's come to me, is this people stuck in an aspect of grief. And part of that grief is earth life can be pretty hardcore, and some stuff goes on here that's difficult to work your way through, but you get caught in it and you get sort of held down in it. And some of what's needed, and some of these things that can also keep you down, cannabis is one of those examples, can keep you down, can also lift you out from it as well. Tobacco is a great lifter out of things. Its sort of essence is freedom. So yeah, this is the beauty from my eyes of what sits behind everything in nature. And there is medicine in everything. I mean, I know we've, through homeopathy and through herbalism and other things, we've established that this does that. And so it's been brought into our sort of herbal toolbox. But everything has medicine. Everything can be looked on with wonder to see how it's growing, how it's flourishing, to know as a reflection of what medicine it can, bring, what it brings to nature in this environmental balance, and what it can bring into our inner world as well.
Do you have any examples of how, a spiritual approach like this can help with physical traumas, or just bring balance and in for people, their relationships with others, their relationships with themselves?
Yeah, totally. There's countless. I mean, the podcast I do, which is called The Language of Nature, is kind of testimony to that. And I do it not because I like the sound of my own voice. I do it because this has been so abnormalized. It's the most natural, innate human nature connection possible, and it's been abnormalized and demonized, and it's horrendous. So I started this from nothing. With most people, you've got to imagine, I started this nearly 10 years ago. So it's kind of picked up a little bit since then. But back then, people were like, what are you on about? Especially as a white, European. So I just started doing it, and people were experiencing it, and people would share very, very similar things. And then I moved it to a group environment, and I found that there were some people who were like super sensitive. And maybe I'll come to that in a moment. And there's people in the group who are less sensitive, perhaps. But the super sensitive are like, oh my God, this is happening, and that, and I can see this, and I can feel that. And the less sensitive are like, oh, yeah, I've got a bit of that going on as well. And I found that it lifted up their confidence. And part of that confidence was general sensitivity, which has been shut down because we live, 9 to 5 fight or flight lives for the most part. And so we've kind of shut down that sensitivity. And the other part is spiritual sensitivity. And that's about what could be, deemed a weakness in some people with food allergies, and, can't be around busy environments. And that's a sensitivity. And that means you're already quite, capable of perceiving all of the stuff that I'm talking about. So in this group format, the sensitive sort of start lifting up the less sensitive, who build up to being more sensitive, and everyone shares the same stuff. And there's, I mean, this is science. Yeah. Science does an experiment, and it comes out with results, and it goes, there we go. And in our world, we know what science has done. But in this, it's like, well, the proof is in the pudding. You've got 12 different people saying exactly the same thing, having the same experiences going on, but they didn't know who we were working with. And that's the magic of my work. I don't say who we're working with. People need to feel if they're already in it, if they're already joining the experience, because, yeah, as you know, the sort of non-linear nature of spirituality means that even before, this work takes place, everything's building up to that point. So if people just sit inside and feel, they're like, okay, there's something brewing here. And a lot of people are already able to sort of explain aspects of that. And then as time gets closer to let's call it it's a session, and it's a more concentrated meditation. But people, if it's an animal, often have already seen it in vision and dream, or in life. And if it's a plant, then that's already also played its part a little bit. Either it's like blossoming all around them, or other things as well. And then there's the response. And so there's a podcast called Master of the Plants, which is where we worked with Incan tobacco. So what they smoke in the Amazon, and people were vomiting and purging, and the heat was building up significantly in people's bodies, and exactly the same response to when you would work with tobacco in that manner in the Amazon. So it's all there with everything. With kambo, it's there. With ayahuasca, it's there. And with ayahuasca, I made contact with indigenous Amazonians in Brazil through my own connections, because I'm in Portugal actually, and they agreed that they'd take part. And so I connected them with the spirit of ayahuasca without them knowing who we were working with. And then they sort of described their experience, and then there was 12 other people who also described their experience. And within that, a number of people had already worked with ayahuasca, and a number of people had had quite traumatic experiences with ayahuasca. And I mean, if I was to speak on that, the first part I'd say is we're taking a medicine from the other side of the world with people that are very in tune with earth. These are real earth peoples. And in the West, we're pretty heavily in our heads. So this whole rooted earth experience and lack of balance in lower chakras, I'd say, over this way, means it can be a traumatic experience, because she's a powerful spirit. And on the other side, we've seen a lot of this in Europe, that people come in to do ayahuasca ceremonies, but they're not really qualified to do it. They haven't done enough self-work. So they're kind of bringing their baggage in, and they're bringing a slightly distorted relationship with ayahuasca themselves. And that itself, I believe, can also bring about negative experiences, stroke trauma, stroke imbalances, and need for recalibration, let's say.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You touched on so many important things, I think, here. I'm curious, though, like, just to rewind a little bit, you're talking about there being some disconnect or some challenges that come up being European, working with a lot of these indigenous medicines. I'm just curious if you can touch some more on that, because I think it's something that a lot of people may relate with if they're, getting into this type of realm or medicine themselves. I think a lot of people have been facing that too. So what are some ways that you've been navigating it and, bringing alignment into these cultural differences and historical legacies?
Well, I'm not sure if there's two questions running in parallel. One is the kind of indigenous
Yeah.
connection as a sort of white European with awful language skills for the most part.
I spent time in South America too, and I was speaking the universal language. I didn't know any Spanish. It was totally.
Yeah. So you've got that going on, where, I mean, let's be honest, there's quite a few Europeans who sort of trodden before and have gone in and sort of collected names of all the people they've worked with, and they're now sort of shaking rattles around the world. And that's not my journey at all. And that's I have to be careful, but a true medicine journey, you're just called into it, and there was no egoic, like, let's go make some money, or let's go heal. There's just like, oh, something's going on here, and what is that? And then you get pulled into it, and then all your own stuff comes, and you start sort of working your way through that. And at a certain point, you realize you're meant to help other people, so you start doing that. And then the whole kind of balancing money and spirituality, which is a real tricky terrain, where loads of people either struggle to make any money from it at all, or just hugely overcharge in a crazy sort of capitalistic financial way. So I don't know, that's one part. The next part is kind of in line with that. If you're going to go and step into a healing field of another, choose very wisely. Go to source in many instances, I think, into the area where that plant itself grew wild, and where there's people that have worked with it for, generations and generations and generations. And the other side is I live in quite it wasn't when I came here, but it's become a place where every other person that comes here is a healer now. And I see sort of healing retreats, and it's like bam, 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 bam. Right, we're going to do cacao ceremony, ice bath, ayahuasca, rapé, da, 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 da. And that's, again, also, that's not healing. That's, in my opinion, yeah, that's a Western sort of TikTok mind that's like, if we're going to heal, let's just go for this. Let's get it all done in a weekend and get back to sort of the bottle of wine and I don't know, Nintendo or whatever. And that's not healing. Healing's this like really step-by-step gradual process of drop back a bit, fall, okay, move forward. Now you've got it. Okay, test it out a little bit. Right. Okay. Increase the extreme of the situation around you. Have you got it? You've got it. Right. Okay. And that's healing. That's healing for me. Onto the kind of indigenous part, because there's a lot happening in that way for me. And in part it's happening because most of my people don't really understand me anymore. The other part is there's such beautiful peoples I'm connected with, such authentic people that have been persecuted, conquered, and all the other things, and I think, and alienated as well. And I kind of know all of this because I'm also, from a country that had people that spoke with nature, and those people were also killed as well in the name of God and religion. So I understand their pain. So it's so when I come to them, I don't come from mind. I come from heart, and they're people that can also see, so they can see what's behind me as well, and I can speak from heart and bring them into that space. And it's been really cool doing ceremony with them in the Western world, where we sort of grab them over to our side. That's happening more and more and more, at least in Europe. I mean, you're closer to it in the Americas, but come over to Europe and do your ayahuasca thing to heal our people, and we'll give you money and take that back home. And my approach at the moment is more like, and this is what I did, and there's a film about it on the Plantally website. It's called Tribally. And I did a ceremony for them, and I showed them my way of doing things with my ancestors, with medicines of our lands, to show we've got it here too. It's all around us here too, and we had it as well, and we forgot it, or it was beaten out of us, or whatever. But that's how I meet them. I don't meet them by going, heal me. I meet them by going, let me serve you. Let me serve you, because you've been running around Europe trying to sort of correct this Wetiko mindset that's gone absolutely berserk, that really needs kind of grounding, cooling down, calming, and rebalancing. And I'm like, thank you. Let me serve you.
That's really beautiful, Andy. And, it's one of the reasons why I got into the integration space too, is because I saw the same kind of thing, and people just going from one thing to another, to another, to another. And then they would get back home and everything would hit them, and they'd be like, okay, well, now what? And then they would succumb to their same life, And when I spent time in South America, there was no need for integration work because their life wasn't as stimulated. It wasn't as busy with the same things, but here it's so needed. It's like going to a Tony Robbins conference, and, it's a feeling like you could change the entire world, and that you're like meant for this great purpose, which we are. Everybody is, that's why we're here in this dynamic time on the planet. But, if you're not continuing with their program, continuing with the work, continuing to integrate what is being taught, then you're going to lose it. You're going to lose that momentum. You're going to go back within a couple of weeks to the same kind of states of mind. Yeah, there's still a paradigm shift. Yeah, it's still progress, but it's not the same as sustainable results and really holding on to that frequency, which is what is kind of portrayed when you're doing the TikTok promotions or the Insta feed scrolling, and you're seeing that, this is almost like a pill, or like the one Band-Aid fix, but it's not about a Band-Aid. It's about this long-term sustainable solution. It's about building up your immunity long-term so that you can kind of be like a pre-annual plant or an adaptogen, and just move through the motions of life, and also connect with our ancestors or whatever spirits were here before us, like the plants, you are what you consume, right? And you are who you spend your most time with. So when you're bringing in these kinds of energies in the way that you're presenting, it's like you're almost embodying these healers. That would be like being the real healers, working with it this way, in a more shamanic way, in a more dieta way than actually the substance itself. It's like, how do you embody that energy instead of taking the medicine and having some kind of expectation, like you're either going to see God or become God or be forever healed.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, I think healing itself needs to be better understood by people, and I find this with my own work. And I always say, when we start a session, it runs through a Telegram group, and I always pin a message, and it's like, house rules. And one of the first house rules is, everyone wants to be healed, but no one wants to heal. And I'm like, if you're fortunate enough to be triggered, on the other side of that sits a gift, but you need to work your way through it. And I watch people squirm and want to pull out, and even people that have been doing this work with me for a long time, because I've been doing it in a very active state for coming up to 4 years. And even then people are like, oh my God, I need to get out. It's like, cool, come on. You've been here before, and we've worked our way through it. Come on. And as this sort of nervous system's lighting up, and it's like, yes, it's lighting up because you're ready to ground more now, and it's moving through that next layer of it. And it's magical. But yeah, healing needs to be understood. It's not a comfy thing, and there's going to be some shouting and anger along the way, and there's going to be a lot of crying. And what I love most about the work that I do is, for a lot of people, there's this sense of being alone. The whole separation of Earth experience brings that in a very theatrical way. But you're not alone. You're never alone. There's so much support and this whole world around us that's, sitting there going, just ask for our help. And with this work, there's something sitting alongside very, very actively, and it's informing your lens on life. And it's like, I know you're about to do this, but you're not meant to be. Come on, we're working our way through, so it's this gentle teacher that sits on the side for the duration. It's normally like 3 weeks to a month, but it's also stays there in the field afterwards, which is helping. Well, on one level, it's helping people to be better human beings. Yeah, let's be honest. On another side, it's working with this wondrous electromagnetic field that we have all around us. It's sort of squeezed in sections, and it's got some sort of scars in other areas, and it's working its way through that in a vibrant, kind of wondrous way, bringing us back to wholeness. And so it's this idea that you have something alongside, walking with you, very actively walking with you, changing these patterns that are so deeply ingrained in so many of us, even down to that voice of addiction that's like, come on, let's do it. And it's like, it's you, hang on, you're not going to get me this time, and I learned addiction. I don't have addictions, but I learned addictions from, well, God, do I? I learned it from the plants. And what's amazing with that is that I just totally changed dynamic. I move into that sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call it elemental frequency. Yeah. So it's like fire and some water and a little bit of earth and that. And then you move into that place, and that's where that thing operates. It's like predominantly fire, let's say, but it's got that water quality as well. And you sit in that, and then you learn that's why that goes on in the world. Okay. That's why people are responding that way, because they're there. And then a month later, I'm into the next thing, and it's switched me around to the next place. And I'm like, okay, that's why that's going on there. So I saw some of your Instagram stuff, and I'm like, yeah, of course that's going on. Of course, because we're in a world that's deeply hurt, deeply wounded, and continues that whole cycle of stuff, of deep suppression of humanity. And and acting out as the control freak and power monger, and it's like all happening, and it's deep wounded, horrendous masculine feminine inner imbalance that's going on, but it's going on, and we're here to observe and witness it, and we're here to in pretty crazy times. I mean, maybe there's, at least in my time, in my duration of life, I'm looking at this time going, wow, this has been an interesting 3 years, and horrendous in so many ways, but what an environment to find truth within yourself when there's lies so apparent all around us. It's like, yes, and that's why we're here. We're not here to murder, destroy. We're here to go, no, that's no, I'm somewhere else actually, and I'm standing here. And I think I would hope in a time in human history where more and more people start stepping into right relationship and start stepping into true power and start finding truth inside themselves, which means going to all their shadow aspects as well, to go, all right, let's bring you to light. Let's bring you to light as well. And in line with that, because with my work, like I said, we go everywhere. So it's like, oh, now we're up here, now we're down there. There's a lot of shadow work, and I don't tell people what we're working with, because then we can mix it up, and so people don't skip over the shadow work.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Andy. I'm just going to take a quick break here. I think there's a lot that our listeners could really consider when we share our sponsors here. So yeah, just, think on it for yourself. Is there an addiction or an energy or something that's coming up for you right now, and listening to Andy speak here today? Take a few minutes now and just write it down. Listen to our sponsors and the amazing work that they're doing, and we'll have Andy right back. We'll see you guys soon.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBG TV, broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and in the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tanganyika.
We have 2 lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Andy. Andy is from Plantally or Plantally. How do you say it? I want to say Plantally.
It should be Plantally, but I've kind of fused it in the word. I do it as Plantally.
Plantally.
Plantally.com. Yeah.
Yes. So I've got it on the banner there, and we're of course going to make it clickable in the description below, but we've been discussing all kinds of different things here, tapping into the dieta of each different medicine that's out there, some of the cultural differences and obstacles that come up, just about addictions and healing and what it really means to be healing and walk in this dynamic time in the earth. And I'm curious to dive in a little bit more with you, Andy. I'm curious about, how it is that you envision the reemergence of just the heart's power in the world today, and I guess maybe some of the differences between how things have been historically and what it is that you envision for kind of the future, as people, open up more to these new realms of spirituality, because it is happening, as you were saying before. It's like the last 3 years, they opened a lot of people up to it, offered a lot of time for people to sit with themselves, but also this opportunity to find truth in themselves too. So yeah, just what's coming up for you around this?
Okay, so how do I see the future? Well, let's work on one idea. Not too long ago, my son was quite ill, and my wife had to take him to hospital, and they had to stay in the hospital in the end for a week. And this was COVID time, so this was super tricky for me to visit them, but I managed to do it one time. And when I looked at the hospital environment and the food they were being fed and the kind of sterile nature of it, it destroyed me a little bit. It destroyed me seeing him there with all these machines, when I've also seen a very different way of working with health, with medicine, with the human being, I guess, from my time in the Amazon, but also from my time of doing this work as well. And it made me want to sort of reimagine what hospitals could be in the future. And part of that was really deeply integrated with nature, first of all. And the second part would be celebrating innate human capabilities, of which some people are, we're given gifts in different directions. But I've met some amazing people in my time capable of doing incredible things. And so it's looking at how the world of hospitals might change. And I spoke with a heart surgeon not too long ago, and I was like, I imagine you're having many more kind of heart complication, people suffering from heart complications coming in now. And he was like, yeah, totally. And I was like, and can you, and how's that going? He goes, well, we can't see where the problem is. And I said to him, well, maybe it's because the problem's not there in the human body. And he goes, yeah, we're starting to realize that. We're starting to realize that it's somewhere else. And so we're starting in one way to see a shift in healthcare, because things have become more readily apparent that they're not in the human body. They start to feature in a more energetic nature, I'd say. And so, yeah, that's one thing, just transforming health. And I think For health to transform, a lot's got to collapse, because I know a lot of first-hand stories, and the podcast that goes out tonight sort of touches on a few of those. And I won't go into them here, but healthcare needs to readdress itself, and within that, I would say oaths were made by doctors to serve health, and I might say that some of those lines have been crossed of late in various ways, and so I think rebalancing what feeds in as a natural pharmacy into our healthcare is hugely important. You said it yourself, like foods, medicine. Yeah, exactly. And all of our plants. A wise man once said, "The medicine you need is always under your feet." So it's like, okay, what have we got growing here all around us? Okay, how can we work with it in a manner of right relationship as well? Because that's also important. In the same way that we don't want to be sort of exploited in life. I might imagine that all sentient life wants to kind of live this vibrant, wild life as well, and be treated with respect and given gratitude as well. So that's just one nature. The other healthcare hospital, but the other part is where inspiration comes from, and it's there in the name. Huh? It's from spirit, and as we humans start to sort of reconnect more fully with spirit, we're going to see an incredible change in the way that we address things, the way we face things, the way that we deal with things, and many other descriptive words that could come in here. But and that's part of what's behind my work as well. It's like I sit in this area, but I never studied engineering, and I never studied neuroscience, and I never studied this. But imagine when those people whose sort of neuro pathways and brains and own elemental equations are like wonderfully like set up for this delivery of inspiration of ideas. Imagine when that happens, they'll be like, got it, know what to do, we're going to do it amazingly this time. And everything's there, because everything that will ever happen and everything that has ever happened is already here. So it's about drawing that down. So I would expect that inspiration and the spiritual nature of humanity will change a lot. And to quote a very spiritual man, I might say, with Einstein, he said something like, you don't solve the problem, you can't solve the problems. Sorry, I should have written this down, but more or less, we don't solve problems with the same consciousness that created them. It's like, yes, absolutely. This is the process of making mistakes, and then owning up to mistakes, and standing in truth from mistakes as well, and stepping to the next layer of, okay, that's how we're going to do things now. And we there's not been too much of that going on. That process sort of, for me, stopped a little bit, and at the same time was derailed quite heavily in the direction that's quite far from nature, and quite far from the spiritual nature of nature and spirit as well, and moved in a more mechanicalized, industrial, computerized form. And kind of on one level, no one knows what happens there. But I do know what sits on the natural side and the natural spirit side of things, and just the incredible nature of that works through just our humans as these incredible natural technology in themselves, capable of doing incredible things if we start to open those layers as well and move deeper in those layers. I think lots of stuff transforms. So to do that, we need to open our minds a little bit and bring it back to psychedelics. The great mind opener, huh? It's like, oh wow, okay, there's a whole world all around me I forgot existed, right? Okay, and that's point number one. Point number two, oh, I'm not my body, and I'm not my ego. Great, okay, where and all these layers of new comprehension, and then it's like, what are we here for? Like, let's play this game in a different way. And so great door openers, wonderful door openers. The one thing I might say is, once the door's been opened, let's maybe try and move through that door in another way, without dependency on something to continue to facilitate that connection. And my work's about that. It's like, okay, your door's open, cool, all right, no need to keep going back there every single day. Get the attraction. You're going to have to do a bit of work to start opening up all of that, and eventually you'll find the same place that's continuously switched on, that doesn't hit your liver, doesn't hit your bodily system in a way that can hurt. Because psilocybin hit my liver quite hard, so I was very careful when I worked with it. Maybe other people, it it's very different. Maybe it's different in their body, but because of the general sensitivity of my body, which includes the fact that people talk about sitting in ayahuasca circles and not having to take ayahuasca. So let's not discount that as a notion, that people realize you can work with ayahuasca in a space without drinking. It's like, okay, so what I'm doing is just a step, from that in one way. And in another way, some people need the tiniest dose to enter in. And I might say at a certain point, you don't even need that tiniest dose to enter in. You move in another way. So that's what I would very warmly invite for our human species at the moment, to be like, okay, it's not weird. Like, come on, you've already opened that door. So now find your footsteps out from that. And there's great guidance that can facilitate that move. And kind of, I might say that the spiritual world applauds that as well. It's like, yeah, okay, come on, let's do it then. This is what we've been waiting for. So sort of invite that. And at the same time, it's a hardcore journey as well. So yeah, take some psychedelics, have some sort of trauma responses. Yeah. Then start the real deep work and moving your way through that, and keep trusting and surrendering, keep having faith, because a lot of people at the moment will, talk about it being madness, or and some people will say, wow, there's a real fine line between sanity and insanity and working in that world as well, because it's incredible, and also far from this sort of physical human body. So and maintain both points, and a lot of spiritual people lose themselves off there, and they can't speak about this work from a grounded position, which means it becomes so easy to vilify it. So stay grounded with it. For every step you want to go up, you need to take a step down as well, and that's the purpose of trauma release, shadow work, and all the other stuff as well.
Yeah, and why there's positive psychology and dark psychology. I was taught so much on positive psychology, pretty much every course that I was doing. And then I thought, oh my God, what is wrong with me that, I'm still having these negative emotions? Or what's wrong with me that, like, these thoughts keep coming up, like intrusive kinds of things? And then I'm like, oh, I need dark psychology. Once I had the balance, I really made huge progress in my life. There's always that duality. It's why in yoga, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. It's why fractals exist. And this is kind of a fractal existence. So I really appreciate so much that you're bringing to the table here, Andy, especially in the realm of psychedelic integration work. I'm curious now, just as like a final question here, what role do you believe that trust, surrender, and faith really plays? Because you've touched on these things. I just, to bring it all together, is there something else that you could share for our listeners today?
Well, imagine this. You've got a white European that goes off up into the mountains to land he's never been before, to hold the heads of indigenous Brazilian Amazonians he's never met before, to know that the medicine will come through and will be evident enough to them for them to speak about it. Can you imagine the trust and faith and surrender that's required in that? And also the trust and faith and surrender that knows it might go another way, and that's also totally cool. That's fine. But that's one example, and I could give millions of examples. I mean, every single month for the last 2 years, I've done a session with the last one was nearly 20 people, and there's never a doubt that this isn't going to do its thing. There's a true confidence in it, because I'm what's the word, like, I have a foundation in it. I'm so in it, and that takes a while to arrive at. And with my work, I touched on it before, working with a group, it's very easy for the ego mind, especially in the Western world, to try and claw back control, and it can't control this world we're talking about. It's beyond it. It supersedes it. So there's a part of its nature to want to fight it, because it can't control it, and it wants to keep you safe here. I've got this for you. And so it's going to play up a lot, and it's going to try and sabotage the process. And you're going to have to stay true to this one thing. It's like, okay, keep moving. And it's a little bit like the time we've lived in, where everyone's sort of been pointing at people. It's like, shame, that sort of thing. And it's like, no, I know where I'm going. I have, true trust in it. And I don't like to try and explain something I saw earlier today. It's when something turns inside out on itself, and the beauty of that, and maybe there's some essence in that, in what I'm trying to describe here. But this work is only it's an invisible world for a reason. It could be hugely visible, and in times in past it was more sort of readily accessible, and we've been through the sort of dark age where it's been sort of heavily closed off. And to keep that alive and that connection going, there's only a few powerful people that have been able to hold that for the rest of the world, I might say. But that whole process it's that connection of trust and faith. And faith as a word's also been kind of eroded by religion as well, huh? But there's deeper aspects. A wise man once taught me to go to the dictionary meaning of a word and not look at how society talks about it in general. The term, I just got shortlisted for as an influencer. I'd applied for an indigenous award, because I've been using this work of working with ayahuasca and kambo to feed monies back to indigenous communities, because you might imagine the work I'm talking about is a bit of a threat to many things, because you take physical out, even down to your sponsors, they'll be like, cut him, get him off, because it's like, yeah. And so for them, they're like, my God, that's our livelihood. These are our medicines, and this is how we've managed to start opening up money coming back to us when we've been sort of deprived of it. I don't want to cut that off. I'm more like, okay, let's work together in another way. Let's open up, because maybe we're nearing the end of this, but there's been a gross over extraction from our world, and a lot of taking and very little giving, and a principle that runs through the singularity, or not singularity, that's the wrong word, the unity of duality is this give and take coming together as one. So mine is like, you guys have held this medicine in purity, and let's work with it another way, and let's keep income streams coming back to you as communities, and honoring that connection, that relationship, that partnership, and evolving new ways of working with everything in our world.
On that, Andy, I really want to thank you for being here. I want to let all of our guests know how special this conversation is. Even if you don't feel it yet, trust me, you're going to get to that point where the stuff is going to resonate. So make sure you check out Plantally, Plantally.com, or Plant Ally if you're me and still want to go grammarly correct. but they are our allies.
However you want to say it, it's all good. It's all good.
Yes, and I'm really excited to keep this connection going. I really appreciate all that you're doing and for taking the time today. I know you don't always come on shows like this, so get over to the website, you guys. I'll make sure that it's clickable below. Thank you again for being here. We'll talk again soon, Andy. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be